Hello and welcome. I'm Mary, and in tonight's sleep story, we'll travel back to my home country of Ireland. It isn't a very large place. Less than 6.5 million people call it home. To put that into context, the island would fit into America 130 times over. Ireland has a rich history of fairy stories and folk tales. These stories are not yours or mine. They belong to the people of Ireland who were kind enough to share them. I, in turn, share them with you and my beautiful children, Caelan and Connell, in the hope that these stories will live on. Tonight's story is one of my favourites, Tir na Nog. Tir na Nog was a place where the trees were always green, the flowers were always in bloom, and men and women never grew old. I'd like to dedicate this story to an immortal soul, James McVeigh, who sadly passed to the other side just a few days ago. May God rest his soul and grant him eternal peace with the angels. As we commence tonight's story, I wish you peaceful dreams and a good night's sleep. Or in Irish Gaelic, I bid you Iha-wa. Far away in the land of Tir na Nog there lived a king. Every 7 years there was a race from the fort gates to the top of the steep hill. First to reach the throne on the hilltop was made king. 3 times he had won the race, but now he was getting nervous. One day he sent for the chief druid. "I am worried that someone else will win the next race," said the king. "Then I would be the king no longer." "Don't worry," replied the chief druid. "You're easily the fastest runner. The only person who will ever defeat you is the man your daughter will marry." "What?" roared the king. He thought of his only daughter, Niamh, who was so beautiful that every man who saw her fell madly in love with her. It was only a matter of time before she married. The king was furious. "She will never marry," he roared. "You must cast a spell on her that will make her ugly and disgusting." "I cannot do such a thing," answered the chief druid. "I have known Niamh since she was born." "And so have I," startled the king. "But not even my own daughter will cause me to lose my crown." Then, snatching the chief druid's magic stick, he strode into the garden. With one touch, his daughter's head became a pig's. "Now," raged the king, "no one will ever marry you, and I will rule forever." Poor Niamh, she ran to her room, screaming and sobbing. She could not believe that her father had done such a thing. What would become of her? Would she ever be an ordinary girl again? One morning, the chief druid came to visit her. "Oh, Niamh," he said, "if only I could undo the harm your father has done." "Then help me, please," said Niamh. "Surely you can do something." There is only one way to get rid of this wicked spell, the chief druid explained. You must marry one of the sons of Finn McCool. If you succeed, the pig's head will disappear. But who would ever marry me as I am? Cried Niamh. I'm sorry, said the druid. There is nothing else I can do. All that day Niamh thought of was what the chief druid had said. At last she made up her mind. When darkness came, she dressed herself in a long hooded cloak. Then taking her white horse, she set off for Ireland. Over the sea went the wonderful white horse, his hoofs scarcely touching the water. Dawn mist shimmered as they reached the shore. It did not take Niamh long to find Finn McCool and his sons. The forests rang with the shouts of their hunting, and the nights echoed with their songs. One of Finn's sons was named Oisín. He was strong and handsome, swift on his feet and fearless in battle. But he was also kind and gentle. Niamh watched from a distance as he rescued a trapped fawn. This is the only man I would marry, she thought. But he is so handsome. Every woman in Ireland must be in love with him. What chance have I? But Niamh was desperate. Silently she followed Oisín everywhere, keeping in the shadows and never showing her face. One evening, after a good day's hunting, the Fianna went home. Oisín was left alone. He had so much to carry that he could not manage it all. Niamh darted from the trees. Let me help you, she said. The sinking sun rested on her pig's head, and she almost turned and ran. But Oisín just said, Thank you, I have too much to carry alone. They walked a long way. Oisín told her the names of the flowers and birds. At last they stopped to rest. The day was hot, and as Niamh took off her cloak, Oisín looked at her. You're very beautiful, he said, except for the pig's head. How did it happen? Slowly, sadly, Niamh told him her story. Tears ran down her ugly face as she remembered her father's treachery. The only way I can become completely human is by marrying one of the sons of Finn McCool, she said. Is that all it takes? Laughed Oisín. That's no problem. I am Oisín, son of Finn, and I will marry you myself. They were married at once. Gradually, the pig's head disappeared, and there was the real Niamh, eyes green as the sea, clouds of golden hair hanging to her waist. A band of diamonds glittered on her forehead, and her dress shimmered with pearls. Oisín could not speak. Out of the shadows came Niamh's faithful horse. Silver tassels hung from the polished saddle. Beads of rubies dangled from the reins, but Oisín scarcely noticed. He could not take his eyes off this beautiful girl. I will never leave you, he said. I will follow you to the ends of the earth. Then get up on my white horse, replied Niamh, and come with me to Tir na Nog. There you will never grow old. You will be young and handsome forever and have everything you could ask for. There the days sparkle with sunlight and the nights are never cold. In a daze of love, Oisín mounted the horse. At once they set off over mountains, rivers and rocks. Soon they came to the ocean. The white horse never stopped, his feet scarcely touching the waves as they crossed. Oisín barely noticed the wonderful places they passed, the water cities, the palaces of light. His face was buried in Niamh's gorgeous hair as it billowed around her. He no longer remembered who he was or what he had left behind. When they reached Tir na Nog, the king was overjoyed. Many and many a time he had wept for the evil he had brought on his daughter. Now, when he saw her, he begged her forgiveness. All my kingdom is yours, he said. You and your husband will rule forever. So Oisín and Niamh began their life together in Tir na Nog. They fished in crystal waters, went swimming in warm lakes. They raced their horses on the sparkling beach, feasted on honey and fruit. Oisín made songs for Niamh as they wandered under the stars. They were the happiest of lovers, and Oisín had all he could wish for. But though Oisín had forgotten his past life, it sometimes came back in his dreams. Then he was with Finn, his father, and all his brothers and friends. They laughed and joked or hunted with reckless speed. Oisín would wake up then and cry out in grief, for all the loved faces had vanished and were lost in his dreams. Early one morning, Oisín said to Niamh, "It's no good. Each day I remember more and more. I must go back to Ireland to see my father and friends." "There's nothing to go back for," Niamh said. "You have been in Tir na Nog for 3 centuries. Your father and friends are all dead and gone." "Nonsense," laughed Oisín. "I have only been here a few years. I must go, Niamh, just for a day. Then I will return and never leave you again." "Very well," Niamh said. "Since I love you, I will let you go. Take my white horse, but be careful. You must not get off the horse. If you do, you will never see me or Tir na Nog again." Then she kissed him tenderly, but her eyes were full of shadows. The white horse took Oisín across the sea as before. But though it pranced as lightly as before, Oisín felt no joy. Clouds smothered the horizon, thunder echoed and died. At last the horse scrambled ashore. It was raining, but Oisín didn't care. He thought of his father and friends, how surprised they would be to see him. Suddenly he paused. Where were the woods that he had hunted in? And the river? Where were the stepping stones? A bridge stretched over it. How puny they looked, and how they stared at him. It was very strange. Where can I find Finn McCool? He asked a girl. But the girl shook her head. Never heard of him, she said. Puzzled and upset, Oisín rode further. Where are Finn McCool and his warriors? He asked a group of men. They looked at one another and shrugged. Then one old man spoke. Finn and the Fianna, my grandfather used to talk about them, but they are all dead and gone this 300 years. 300 years? Oisín remembered what Niamh had said. Could it be true? He would go to the hill of Allen where Finn had his fort. Surely he'd see them there. But the fort was in ruins. Weeds and nettles grew up between the stones. Oisín was heartbroken. He could not believe that his father and friends were dead. I'll go to Tara, he thought, to the High King himself. Surely there someone will tell me the truth. He turned the patient horse around and headed north. Beside the road, some men were trying to lift a stone. They're so weak, thought Oisín. Not even 6 together can lift it. But I could do it with one hand. He leant from the saddle and tossed the stone easily into the cart. The men gasped, but instantly there was a snap. The stirrup broke and Oisín tumbled off the horse. As he hit the ground, Niamh's warning was screaming in his ears, but it was too late. The proud, handsome warrior disappeared, and Oisín became a withered old man. The white horse tossed his head and galloped away. Someone rushed from a nearby hut. It was the holy man Patrick. Lifting Oisín up in his arms, he carried him inside. For days he nursed him while Oisín told him of Finn and the Fianna and the days of long ago. Then Oisín died. It was the end of the Fianna, the last great band of heroes and poets. And maybe, too, it was the end of Tír na nÓg, for Niamh of the golden hair was never seen again.